Clint Lamb, cover Crimson, A to Z Sports, all over the place talking Alabama. He's with us now on the Alexander Shenard Trial Attorney Hotline. Clint, welcome back to the show, man. It's camp week. I mean, you got to get a little excited about camp week, right? Get the players back together again.
Yeah, this feels a little like Christmas. Alabama's set to get underway on Wednesday, and we're actually going to be getting some, I wouldn't say open practices, but some media viewing periods where we'll actually be able to get our own eyes on it, observe a couple of periods. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get started.
There was a lot of, I guess, questioning around would Kalen DeBoer be able to recruit after he took the job last season. Alabama has been on a historic recruiting tear over the past couple weeks. Were you expecting that? Were you surprised by that? Do you expect things to slow down? Where are you on the recruiting trail with Alabama?
You know, he's a relationship builder. You know, he's been that everywhere he's been. His coaching staff, that's kind of a priority for him. Not only does he build relationships with those guys, but they have to have the ability to do that as well. So, you know, I'm not surprised. A lot of people, when he was first hired, they wondered, okay, how is this guy going to come into the South and be able to recruit Georgia or Alabama or, you know, Mississippi or Louisiana? You know, that's not really an area where he had needed to target at previous stops. But anytime someone's able to establish those relationships and establish that trust with parents, you know, I think that you're going to be successful because I think, don't get me wrong, he's got, you know, a healthy NIL backing. He's certainly not outbidding for players. That's just not how Alabama wants to operate or is going to operate. But they, you know, I think it's a combination of they're in a respectable place as far as some of the NIL offers, and there's trust and there's development. So I think with that combination that's made him successful, I wasn't shocked at all at the run that they went on, and I fully expect that to continue. Now, do I think that they're going to finish with the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class? Probably not, just how they're setting the class up. But I do think that they are not only targeting the guys at the top of their board that they really want, the must-haves, and they're doing a good job of closing on those guys, but they're also doing a really good job of evaluating some of the lower-rated guys, combining that where you're putting together an overall really respectable recruiting class. So love their approach and definitely think they'll keep it going.
As we do this, the Maxwell Award watch list is out with Ryan Williams on it. Wasn't always a smooth connection between quarterback and star wide receiver. We all remember the Georgia moment, but near the end of the year, there were a lot of misses there. Give me the mindset you think of Ryan Williams with a different quarterback and now Ryan Grubb calling plays. I think a lot of people, I know it's hard to say this because his name was mentioned so much last year, Clint, but I think a lot of people are thinking this is going to be sort of a breakout year for Ryan Williams.
And I would agree to a certain extent. You know, he cooled off a lot last year. Now, some of that's through his own play. You know, he kind of hit that freshman wall a little bit. He had some focus drops. You know, there are still nuances of playing the position at a really high level that he's still learning. But at the same time, what he provided Alabama's offense as a 17-year-old last year was nothing short of incredible. Fully expect him to continue to improve. And I think that the quarterback play and the way that it sets up, like the way that Ty Simpson wins, one of the things that I think is special about him is ball placement. He puts the ball in a position where his playmakers can make plays after the catch. And Ryan Williams, he makes the acrobatic catches down the sidelines. He can do all of those things for you, but he also has the ability to create yardage after the catch. And so that combination, I think, is going to set up well for him. I think it's going to set up well for Jeremy Bernard. You know, a lot of Alabama's receivers that they have the ability to do that. Jalen Milroe was a good quarterback last year. And when he was on, he was certainly on. And the vertical ball, when it was on, he was one of the most lethal vertical ball throwers in the country. But I don't think there was enough consistency there as far as the short to intermediate routes. And even when there was completions, the ball wasn't always put in a place where they could create yardage after the catch. So I think between, you know, what Ty Simpson brings to the table from an accuracy and ball placement standpoint, on top of what Alabama's expecting to have at wide receiver, not just Ryan Williams, but other guys, I think that room is going to take a massive step forward and definitely be one of the better wide receiver rooms in college football.
Like you said, Jalen Milroe at times looked like the best quarterback in the country last season, but consistency was an issue. Do you expect to see a more consistent product from the quarterback position with Ty Simpson?
I do. And it's not just Jalen Milroe. I think the coaching staff, Nick Sheridan in particular, wasn't always comfortable calling things to Jalen Milroe's strengths, like, where he wanted to live as a play caller versus what Jalen Milroe did well. It didn't always mesh. And so I think that created some uncomfortable situations, lack of early down success. And now you're in an unfavorable situation. Your quarterback's really not set up for 3rd and long. Your tackles weren't set up for 3rd and long. Like, your entire offense it's all about staying on schedule. And they didn't do that well enough last year. I think having a more consistent passing game at all 3 levels is what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want. They still want to test you vertically, and they're certainly going to throw the ball downfield. That's a huge element of the offense. But they want more consistency in the short to intermediate areas where they can open up things for the run game, and all of it can kind of work in unison. We just didn't see that enough last year, at least consistently enough last year, and I think that's going to make a massive difference. It's not that Jalen Milroe doesn't have a ton of talent. He absolutely does. I think he's doing phenomenal for the Seattle Seahawks in training camp so far. But I just think with what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want primarily out of the quarterback position, they're going to get more of that with Ty Simpson than they did with Jalen Milroe. And I think that's going to make for a better play caller quarterback marriage in 2025.
Boy, LT Overton made an impact a lot last year. And he's another one of those guys that it's hard to say breakout year, but boy, the offseason buzz about this guy is just through the roof. What does LT Overton do well? What do you like about his game when you're breaking down the tape?
First of all, stops the run extremely well. He's a big body guy, and playing him out there as that, bandit defensive end, that strong side field defensive end, has the ability to set the edge and stop the run. But I think his ability to be a transitional pass rusher, meaning when it's an early down and they end up throwing the football, you got to switch from being a run defender to a pass rusher quickly. He can be a good on-body rusher where he can transition and still affect the quarterback. He just didn't do a good enough job last year of finishing plays. Like, he had 39 total pressures. That was a very respectable number. But as far as, only having 2 sacks based off of that, that doesn't connect. Typically, guys who are getting 35 to 40 pressures, they're sitting anywhere from 6, 7, 8, or maybe even 9 sacks. And so him only having 2, he's got to do a better job of finishing. But, he has all of the tools to be successful. He's dropped a little bit of weight. Think that's going to allow him to be a little bit more explosive. But he also has some versatility. You can do some different things as far as moving him inside. You might see some packages or some situations where you get multiple bandits on the field because LT Overton has the ability to kick inside and play some tackle, a 3-tech over the guard or something like that. And so I think between the versatility and the overall talent, certainly has the potential to be one of the better defensive players in all of college football, certainly has day one NFL talent. He's just got to do a better job of finishing and kind of putting it all together, but he is certainly a special talent. But Alabama also needs to do a better job of getting some complementary pieces to that at least can be there consistently. They had a lot of issues at the Wolf with injuries and departures in the middle of the season. So, I mean, it's not just LT Overton, but if they could get what they need to out of him and then get some complementary pieces, I think the pass rush can be much improved for sure.
We touched on this a little bit earlier, but PFF has been rolling out their, preseason rankings, and Alabama is the only team in the country that has a top 10 player at every defensive position. What do you expect to see from Alabama's defense as a whole entering the season?
Yeah, I think they got a really good combination of, they got great guys at the top. They got NFL talent. They got experience, but they did a really good job of kind of filling some of the holes. Like when you go and get a Cam Calhoun to potentially be your cornerback 3 or cornerback 4, then you go get a Dijon Lee who's proving, like he's going to be a guy who's ready to contribute pretty much from day one. He's going to be a guy who's battling at that position too. You've gone from having, probably the best cornerback duo or one of the best cornerback duos in all of college football to you've now added depth to that where you can sustain, if injuries happen, you can maintain a high level of play. I think they've done that, especially in the secondary, but I think at linebacker, assuming Deontay Lawson's able to return to form, you've got him, you've got Nakai Hill-Green, you've got Justin Jefferson, 3 veteran players. They've played a lot of football, seen a lot of snaps. that should certainly help on that level. And then when you start talking about the guys up front, I think adding a guy like Kelby Collins from Florida has the ability to play bandit, has the ability to play inside, so he can provide depth at both positions, can make an impact in a variety of ways. So I really like what they've done on that side of the football, and I love the continuity factor as far as, Kane Womack sticking around, and they have pretty much the entire, coaching staff from a year ago outside of Colin Hitchler. I think that continuity and just the depth and the talent, it's going to make for one of the best defenses in college football.
Okay, so you look at it differently than I do. I'm a left side artistic brain guy. Football. I'm just a fan. Camp's opening up. I've asked you some questions. Taylor's asked you some questions. But you tell me, what are you looking for? What are you going to be watching in this camp? What has to get better? What question do you need answered before they play that first game down in Tallahassee?
I think Ty Simpson's done everything that he possibly can up to this point to win Alabama's starting quarterback job. But I want to see him continue to press and actually step up. A couple of years ago, one of the big problems was, Nick Saban kept wanting someone to step up and take the starting job. And it just felt like that even leading into the beginning of the season, just nobody would. I would like to see him continue to kind of progress and show those qualities and actually earn the starting job rather than just being named because that's the best option they have, once the season opener rolls around. I'm going to be looking at the offensive line depth. We heard good things about Olasolinen and his development once he kicked out to tackle. He's more of an inside build, probably is going to end up there long term, but they really need some tackle depth to make you feel really good about the offensive line. Like the starters, I think, are good and can end up being one of the better units, offensive line units in college football, but the depth at tackle in particular is somewhat concerning. I'll keep an eye on Olasolinen, on Jackson Lloyd, Arkell Nugum, the transfer from Ball State. That's another one who has a lot of raw ability, but how is he progressing as far as the development? I'll be keeping an eye on that. And then there are a couple of guys, so it's like, okay, I like Alabama's running back room. I really do. But Daniel Hill, the more I've heard about him and the more I've watched him and just the fact that he's this big-bodied, powerful guy who's actually a very underrated receiver, can really provide some consistency as far as your run game and just consistently churning out 4 or 5 yards and keeping you on schedule as far as what you can call offensively. I just want to see, kind of where is he fitting into the pecking order, because right now I would probably project him in that RB3 role behind Rich Young and Jam Miller, but I also wouldn't be shocked at all if he ends up pushing for RB2 or maybe even RB1 before it's all said and done. I'm not going to predict that, but I just want to see how he's coming along and where he fits in, because I think he could really help this Alabama offense as far as staying on schedule in 2025. And then guys like Rico Scott, how he's progressing at wide receiver. Where is Latsier Brooks fitting into the mix offensively? What's the health of Deontay Lawson? Like, we don't know for sure. We know he's probably not going to be 100% as fall camp gets underway. He's probably going to have to split some of those reps. He's acknowledged that, but just how close to 100% is he? And is it a situation where Alabama is going into that Florida State game where he's working in more of a platoon role rather than being kind of a full-time starter? And how does that affect Alabama's defense? From a talent standpoint, I don't think it affects it a ton, even though I think he's one of the better linebackers in college football. It's more of the field general, him being that guy for you on defense. Now you don't have Jahad Campbell and Malachi Moore and some of the guys that stepped up when he went down last year as far as handling those responsibilities. Who's going to be that for Alabama this year? So that's just a couple of things I'm looking out for, but there's certainly a lot to talk about with this team.
What's your expectation for this team? What do you think their ceiling is? Everyone is talking about, there would be no surprise if Alabama was in the college football playoff, but do you think their ceiling is a national championship? Do you expect them to be a national championship contender when the end of the season rolls around?
I absolutely do. You look at the qualities. A lot of people have made the comparisons to last year's Ohio State, where you had guys who could have went to the NFL. They ended up not having as many draft picks because of that, because guys elected to come back. The buy-in post-spring as far as no guys entering the transfer portal, the continuity with the coaching staff. You even keep your offensive coordinator from last year and Nick Sheridan, but you also add a phenomenal offensive mind, one of the better college football play callers, in my opinion, in Ryan Grubb. Like, how often does that happen where you add someone of that caliber, but yet you maintain the guy that you had last year, where the quarterbacks continue to feel comfortable and there's continuity? You talk about all of the elements as far as putting a quarterback in a position to be successful. I think the offensive line's going to be good. I think they've upgraded in a major way at wide receiver. Running back room is certainly good enough. Complementary defense, both coordinators back. I think there's a lot working in Alabama's favor. A lot will depend on how the quarterback does. But I think with all those other circumstances, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Ty Simpson was one of the better quarterbacks in college football and Alabama was one of the better teams in college football and pushed for a national title. We'll obviously have to see it, but just everything on paper looks really good right now.
All right. He's Clint Lamb. You can get him at Cover Crimson. When's the next live show? We don't do enough of that on here telling people when the next live show is. When's the next live show over at covercrimson.com?
Yeah, we're going to be going live with fall camp getting underway on Wednesday. We'll be going live to kind of talk about some of the things that I see in the open portions of practice. But we'll also have a show coming out here in just a little bit, and Mick and I are about to record. We'll be answering some mailbag questions that fans have for fall camp, and then we'll kind of get into it on Wednesday.
All right. Well, it's just Taylor and me here all week long. So if you have any extra mailbag questions you don't answer, send us the questions and the answers so we can answer them on the air too. Clint Lamb.
I love it.
Clint Lamb, covercrimson.com over there, and he and Mick with the show dropping a little bit later on. Thanks for being with us, buddy. We appreciate you.